with the stimulus money, the governor has indicated the stimulus money should cover that. It's roughly $150 million. There's also municipal revenue sharing that the state has historically shared with municipalities of $50 million.
The Conway Daily Sun.
And then the third leg of that stool, if you will, is the school building aid.
But that's not going to affect Conway.
Yes, it is.
How is that? How's that?
Because Conway, bond issues in the past depends on the state maintaining its commitment, and the lack of meeting that commitment is going to cost Conway $1.6 million.
Over 20 years, over the bond, so.
No, next year.
And that,
they're going to renege? I don't understand. I mean, the money they've already committed to, us for our new school, they're not going to.
That was a bombshell that came out at their meeting a couple days ago, a week ago.
I mean, that was the discussion that happened at the selectmen's meeting on Tuesday night. $1.6 million, and that's why, you know, what I've said.
$400 it'll cost someone with a $300,000 home. It costs them about $400.
So how can the state renege?
Exactly, Mark. Exactly. You can't.
Are we talking 1.7 million for Conway that will be spread around the towns who are in on the bond, or just strictly Conway, and then every other town's going to be picking up even more? Because we get a bond here, and that's a huge number, 1.7. I got to imagine that's everybody paying. That's probably just the bond. That'll probably be divvied up between Conway and Madison and Bartlett.
Well, I assume for towns that tuition their kids here, it's going to then be passed back to those towns vis-a-vis.
Well, the other towns are also paying the bond. We have
then it would be split up over those towns.
All right.
Conway pays 55% of the bond. I believe, Lloyd, isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So 55%. It'll cost someone with a $300,000 home $200 more on the tax.
Wow.
So the point I'm making is the state cannot walk away from those commitments. And the Republican version of the budget made across-the-board cuts about 13%, which I feel, even though it's difficult, it's justified because the last budget increased spending 17.5%. So that should be where we look to make adjustments in the bureaucracy to balance the budget without new taxes, the rooms and meals tax. I mean, that's a huge hit on the economy. Probably no more community is more affected than Conway because of the hospitality industry here in the state. The Republican budget makes those cuts, does not rely on new taxes or increased taxes, and it funds building aid, $83 million, and it funds municipal revenue sharing. Conway's loss of municipal revenue sharing is about $125,000. The House passed budget does use stimulus money to fund the rooms and meals revenue sharing. So Conway, I think that was Conway's share was about $350,000. You can argue, I suppose, whether that is appropriate to use one-time money to fund this. I think what it tells me is that unless we get our arms around reducing spending, the next thing in the next budget that'll be cut is that municipal revenue sharing that, you know, people are making it pretty clear on the other side of the aisle that they'll try to fund it this year with the one-time money, but it'll be the first thing to be cut next year. So on top of, you know, no school building aid, no municipal revenue sharing, in the next budget there'll be no rooms and meals tax sharing, and the Mount Washington Valley is going to endure the economic consequences of a 10% hike in the rooms and meals tax. And the problem with that, tours, conventions, the ability to attract people to, you know, stay in a place like Conway that relies on, you know, visitors to this area, it just becomes less and less competitive when you look at Maine that has a lower tax, or Massachusetts that has a lower hospitality tax. And that's why across the board businesses in the Mount Washington Valley, as Nate, I think you've been covering over the last couple of weeks, are irate that, you know, the House has passed this.